Today's bell ringer gets into a little bit of what you would call geometry. You want to find the length of the segment. If this piece from here to here is 8 and this piece from here to here is 3, then the overall length should be 8 plus 3, which is 11. So that would be your length. So using that same concept, what if I have something here where this is 2x and this is 7? We would just call this, just like we did 8 plus 3, we would call it 2x plus 7. And that's all we can do because of what we learned from other things, that you can't put the x term together with the constant term is what we call it. So that's really all we can do. So this is the answer to that second segment, and 11 is the answer to the first segment. If you're asked to simplify this expression, the best way to answer these questions, especially if you're not absolutely aware of what you're supposed to do, is to use common sense and eliminate what doesn't make sense. So if I went 10x and negative 2x, or 10 minus 2, knowing that that is 8x, it means that once I know that should be 8x, I can eliminate anything that doesn't have an 8x as an answer. So now I've just got to make sure I understand what's going to happen here. And based off what I remember, if it's a positive 4 and negative 3, first off, it shouldn't be negative because the 4 is bigger. Second, it shouldn't be 7 because you don't add them. You actually, these compete, and it'd be plus 1, so it'd be that one right there. So again, just make sure you're working on kind of trying to understand that stuff, and I believe that is our last bell ringer for a while. So anyway, lessons 3, 6. Last week we learned about 3 of the 4 basic ways to remove a value. We learned about the inverse operations. We practiced using them appropriately. Let's real quickly review these just to make sure we still got it. So 5 equals x plus 7, we were taught to identify where x is and move whatever is attached to it, which is a 7, by using its opposite operation. 5 minus 7 is actually negative 2. Bring down your equals, brings down your x. Over here, x is here with negative 2. So if we want to get rid of this negative 2, we need to add 2 to both sides, bringing down x, and then negative 8 plus 2 would be negative 6. And then the third thing we learned was how to move two numbers that are directly attached, which is being multiplied by dividing by whatever is attached. These two things cancel to become 1. Negative 40 divided by 10, because there's one negative makes it negative, and 40 divided by 10 is 4. So these were not the only types of problems from last week, but the general idea is the same. If we see a number being added with a positive 4, then we use a minus 4 to remove it. If we see a number being subtracted, or a negative 8, then we use a plus 8. And if we see a number being multiplied, which means it's connected, we just divide to remove it. The last information for your test this week, we'll be dealing with solving division. Hopefully you've been adjusting your eyes to what algebraic operations look like. Recently we discussed that division is shown using a fraction notation, and because of this it should be easy to see the number is being divided. So if you look at these problems, this is our last piece of information for the chapter. So your test Friday will have the 3 things that we just talked about, which pretty much is your quiz from last week, and then these questions. So what you notice is x divided by 7 equals 3. Well, this is x divided by 7, and the opposite of division is multiplication. So what you will do is multiply by 7 and multiply by 7. Why do I put my 7 in parentheses? Because that usually means, that's usually our sign for multiplying. So with that said, what happens is, again, you have a 7 on top, you have a 7 on the bottom, and just like before, 7 divided by 7 is 1. Those two things go away, and 3 times 7 is 21. All right. Same thing over here. Negative 4 equals x over 9. X is being divided by 9. I need to get rid of this 9, and it's being divided, so I will multiply by 9 and multiply by 9. 9 times negative 4 is negative 36. These two 9s cancel or go away, returning to 1, giving us our answer of negative 36 equals x. So today's note guide just has a section that's asking you to imagine solving and answer a couple of questions. That's because once you can see the process, it's much easier to do. After that, it will give us some problems to explore together as a class. As usual, again, if there's anything you're not absolutely clear about, make sure you contact your teacher ASAP. Your test this week can make a huge difference in your grade if you take advantage of it. For those of you who are not passing but almost there, this test can make a big difference. For those of you who are almost there in general, this test again can make a big difference. So just make sure you are working to get there. So for the first few, I just want you to look at this, circle the value that needs to be removed, or for you at home, just imagine what value that needs to be removed, and then pick the answer that you think we would use to solve it. So if you had 6x equals 84, take a few seconds to think about what the number that you would remove is, and also what operation you would use to remove it, because that's important. First thing is, it's 6x, so 6 has to go. Second thing is, these two are being multiplied, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So we would divide both sides by 6. We'd actually put over 6, and finish that off. Take 5 seconds to look at number 2, identify what needs to be removed, and then think about what you would do to move it. Remember to pause the video if you need to, because I'm just counting to 5 in my head before I go. In this case, x is on the right, so this needs to go. It's a -1 that's being combined, so we're going to add, because we would have to put +1, +1, and so on and so forth to get that taken care of. Check out number 3, same thing. If this is x over 5, x divided by 5, the number with x is 5. That is x divided by 5, and the opposite of division would be multiplication. Just keep in mind you're always thinking opposite of what you see. So if you learn to kind of view it as what's going on, then if you slow down, just kind of think about it, everything else should kind of fall into place. Check out number 4, please. So looking at -2 plus x equals 5, this is tricky because it is addition, but it's not really addition. It's actually subtraction, because it would be x minus 2. So therefore what we're looking at here is that's -2, which means in order to move it, we would actually add 2 to both sides. So this is what has to go, and we would actually add 2 because that needs to be treated as such. If you look at 5, if x is on the right, this is what's with it. It is a +5, and it is being combined, so we would subtract 5 from both sides if you were to do that. Again, don't worry about solving them. Just make sure you can visually see exactly what you would do to solve them out. So number 6, please. The number with x is this. Those two things are being multiplied. Opposite of multiplication is division. Check out 7. The number with x is 4. Those two things are being divided, so therefore we would multiply to get rid of it. And then number 8, the number attached to x is this -3, but it's being multiplied, so you would actually divide, and remember what you divide by is actually -3, just to make sure you've got that down. All right. So real quick, let's just make sure we practice this. So if you are at home, I would write these down just to make sure you get it. What we're looking at here is x divided by 3 equals 7. And so what you would do again, since that's divided by 3, is you would multiply by 3 by putting 3 above those numbers in parentheses. This 3 divided by 3 goes away, bringing down x, and then 7 times 3 is 21. If you're looking at number 10, and again, if you want to try it, just pause the video, try it out, and see if you get it right. You actually learn more from messing up anyway. So x over 8 equals 8. This is x divided by 8. This has to go, so we're going to multiply by 8. 8 divided by 8 goes away, bringing down x. 8 times 8 is 64. I think we're learning that this week as we wrap up our multiplication facts. Once again, if you want to pause that to try to work out 11, go ahead and do that. This is x divided by 9 over here, which means to move that 9, I need to multiply by 9. 9 times 3 is 27. These two 9s go away, bringing down x, and that is our answer. Just remember to keep your x on the same side. Hopefully you got a little bit of practice with that last week. Some of you do need to work on your organization, but again, over time, as long as you're willing to keep improving, you will get there. -2 equals x over 6. Again, check that out. See if you can do it if you want to. X divided by 6 is here, so we will multiply by 6 on both sides. 6 times -2 is -12. These two things go away, bringing down x. And then what happens if the numbers get real? Well, good news is we work with all these, or we should have been. X over 12 equals 11. And the way you do that is you recognize it's divided by 12, so we'll multiply by 12. These two things go away. I do not know what 12 times 11 is, so I'll go over here to the side and set it up. 1 times 2 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Once I'm finished, bring down a 0. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Add these two things together, getting 132. So there will be numbers that are more realistic at times. That's why I said you want to make sure you know how to do your long multiplication, because you never know when that it might actually pop up. But outside of that, just make sure you're practicing this stuff, because again, your test this week on Friday is huge. If you know you're not going to be in class on Friday, my best advice to you is to email your teacher and see if there's anything you can do to either take it early, or what you can do if you're not going to be able to do it on Friday in general, because having a 0 on a test is going to hurt you. So just make sure you do your job as a young adult, communicate like you need to, and talk to you later.